And I'm not sure if you guys watched it. Jess, did you see it?
Yeah. I saw the clips that were circulating. I didn't watch the press conference, but I saw what he said.
So I want to shout out Daniel Nugent-Bowman of The Athletic, who just did an amazing job breaking it down. But this tweet, I think, basically sums up what happened. And he said, Ken Holland poured cold water on near-term moves for the Oilers, as in firing the coach or doing some sort of deadline trade. He left the door open for Evander Kane, and otherwise he made it pretty clear Mike Smith and better play from some players will be the solution to turning this team around. And what Ken Holland essentially said, guys, was, they've had a bad 5 weeks. And those 5 weeks have been spread out, 13 games. So it wouldn't have normally lasted this long. But because of the COVID postponements and whatever, this is what's happened. It's fair to say Oilers Nation didn't react well to this press conference.
No, they didn't say anything. So, to me, it's the GM wearing it. Sometimes the coach will take attention off the team to put the heat on him, and that's his way of jumping on the grenade. This is Ken Holland doing it, but he did it by saying nothing. He essentially said nothing. We're going to stay the course. They're probably not as good as the 16-5 they were at the beginning of the season. They're probably not as bad as the 2 regulation wins in 13 games.
2-9-2.
It is horrible.
One thing before you keep going, Steve, I just want Jesse, can you turn up your mic just a little bit, buddy?
Oh, sure.
How's that?
Oh, yeah.
Much clearer. Better. I like that sexy
Turn the
voice.
Jesse up to 11.
Yeah. All right. Go ahead, Steve. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no. So he didn't say anything, but here's what he's trying to do. He's just trying to buy time.
Okay.
And if you had asked me this trivia question, I couldn't have given you the answer off the top of my head. For the both of you, when is the trade deadline?
That's a good question. I thought it was beginning of April.
Okay, that's Adam's answer.
I'm going to guess March of 10th.
I like Adam's idea of an April Fool's trade deadline day.
Oh, yeah.
There's a smart insider man. Might be a busy bee that day. It is March 21st.
Okay.
So the Oilers and every other team that is not sure who they are have about 10 weeks to discover. They have some time. So, I mean, I am not stoked on Ken Holland as a general manager. He obviously has a past track record of success. His recent track record, like the end of his Detroit tenure and onward, has been abysmal. But I don't think he's stupid. If this continues, changes have to be made, whether it's coaching or personnel or both. I can't imagine a scenario where this continues for the Oilers. And, teams try not to be reactionary and tenured GMs try not to be reactionary. But we've seen plenty of examples. I want to say Vancouver was one of them, where things were going really bad. They hold a press conference to say, no, we're staying the course. And then things continue to be bad for 5 more games. And that's it. Right. That's it. People are fired. All it took was 5 more games. So if the Oilers get back to playing games and I don't know what their upcoming schedule is, I could look it up. But if they don't do so hot over the next half dozen games, I mean, that's 12 points. That's 12 points up for grabs. That's a lot of season. And all of a sudden, March 21st seems a lot closer.
And that's about 2 extra weeks because it's usually the second week of March. So they get a little extra runway. And as a general manager, looking at it from that perspective,
you stop.
Ken
we
Holland,
gotta talk about you, by the way.
Ken Holland,
by the way.
If the way he's probably looking at it, because I can get inside his mind in the same role, he's probably looking at it as he has the bullet to play with his head coach. That's probably because if he starts trading from the roster, then he's admitting that it's his fault. And I don't think he wants to do that. So I think like the first thing that we see happen if the Oilers keep losing is Tippett being fired in the next month or so.
So it's interesting. If that's the case, Jesse, he's painted himself into a corner because he said the Oilers have had 7 head coaches in the last 10 years. You can't just keep flipping out coaches.
And I think he does the exact opposite. So
you're saying in the next, you think that won't affect them? Because
GMs lie to the media all the time, or it's not so much lying as they change their mind because of the circumstances that happen on the ice.
And I don't know when they're supposed to get this back. Really, because so they play Saturday. They have a postponed game against Minnesota, postponed game against Vegas, an actual game against Ottawa on Saturday, a postponed game against Winnipeg, a postponed game against the Chicago Blackhawks, and then after barely playing for 2 weeks or whatever it ends up being, your first game back, Florida. Ooh,
that sucks.
Followed by Calgary, which is always a heated affair, and then they get Vancouver. So like, who knows? Maybe all those in division games, get the blood pumping. Maybe it's a angry affair that gets you going and galvanizes everyone. Maybe there's a couple pats on the shoulder. Hey, go out and get them. I almost said Luch, but he's not on the team anymore. I don't know. Whoever fights on the Oilers, go out there and fight whoever fights on the Oilers. And, that's what turns their season around. But how do you even, if you're Dave Tippett behind the bench, how do you even come up with a plan?
Well, I think you got to remember, right? The Dave Tippett that you've seen for the last 5 weeks is also the Dave Tippett that went 15-6 with this team to start the season.
Yep.
And I acknowledge that that's probably an unsustainable pace, but maybe there's a happy medium. And maybe the Dave Tippett problem is really a Ken Holland problem for never addressing the goaltending. And, he said it again yesterday. It's going to be Mike Smith and better play. Well, I think, are the Oilers capable of playing better? Sure. But I think for them to be contenders, he's going to ask them to play above their current skill level for a sustained amount of time. And I don't know if that's reasonable. And it's not to denigrate any of the players that are currently there. But if you look at the defense core, and again, I always go back to this with the Oilers, the supporting cast around Connor and Leon, who are the people, frankly, who should be picking up the slack because you're not scoring. So you may as well play some defense, right? Mm-hmm. Fair?
Mm-hmm. Fair.
Are these people, do you look at this roster and go, that's a roster that can even compete for the second round? Do you look at that and go, Stanley Cup contenders?
And can I talk about the storm coming for a certain individual on the Oilers? Because he's a good player and he's popular.
Wayne Gretzky.
But we'll see how long that lasts if the team keeps struggling.
That's a Tikkanen.
Because you cannot divorce a player from his contract.
Bob Asenza.
Darnell Nurse.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you bring up Darnell Nurse. Let me. I want to come back to Darnell, but give me your point on Darnell. What do you think? What are your thoughts there?
I'm not even saying he's bad, but not once through any conversation we've had about the Oilers, any conversation I've had with anybody about the Oilers, has Darnell Nurse come up. That dude. Okay, so he's $5.6 million right now. That's a good deal.
Good deal.
Good deal. Next year, it's 9.25 for the foreseeable future. And that will make him, shockingly, hold on to your butt for this, the Oilers' second highest paid player.
More than Leon.
Leon makes 8.5. So the more this team struggle, and the Oilers don't have a dumb fan base.
No, they're pretty smart.
They know. So they'll know he's not part of the problem, but there are going to be factions of the fan base, factions of the scribes who turn their sights on him because they follow the money. When the team struggles, they follow the money.
So I want to run you through a thread here. And this is from, I'm sure you guys saw this yesterday, from Oilers Pain on Twitter.
I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a great thread. And Oilers Pain, boy, that sums up being an Oiler fan since about 1991. here's what they said, and it's a bit long, but bear with me. Ken Holland's been an NHL GM for the past 25 years. Let's look at his last decade of work year by year. Time for a quick thread. Shall we start in 2012, gentlemen?
Let's start. Coney.
In the offseason in 2012, signed 37-year-old Todd Bertuzzi to a 2-year, $4 million contract. Bertuzzi played 66 total games and retired. He also signed Jordan Tutu for 3 years, Samuelson for 2 years, 35-plus contract, Carlo Koliakovo for 2 years. Samuelson played 30 more games in the NHL. Tutu and Koliakovo both got bought out of those contracts. 2013, 2 hilariously big bad splashes. Remember this contract? Stephen Weiss from Florida, 5 years, $24.5 million.
Ooh.
They bought him out after 2 seasons and 11 total goals.
Oh.
Then signed Jonathan Ericsson to a 6-year, $25.5 million contract, which he finished in the AHL.
Oh, man.
In 2014, he signed Jonas the Monster Gustafsson to a 1-year, $1.85 million deal. Gustafsson went on to play 7 games.
Oof.
He signed Dan Cleary to a 35-plus contract, $1.5 million plus $1 million in performance bonuses. Cleary plays 17 games, his last 17 in the NHL. He traded Patrick Eaves, Calle Yarncroke, and a second for 21 games of 34-year-old David Legwand.
Oh.
Now, that to me, yeah. Now, I got to be honest with you, that to me feels like a Babcock move. I just want a guy named David Legwand. He's played for Barry Trotz, and he's defensive, and he's boring. And I can throw him out there for 89 minutes a night. 2015, signed 35-year-old Brad Richards to a $4 million deal. Richards plays his final 68 NHL games on this contract. He gets 28 points for $4 million. Signed declining Mike Green for 3 years and $18 million also that year. And also, and this one's a big one, signed Justin Abdelkader, 7 years, $29.75 million. That was bought out by Steve Yzerman. If you remember, in about 2017, the Leafs were sniffing around and Abdelkader's name was being put out there. Babs apparently really wanted him. Lou almost did it. Thank God that didn't happen. 2015 continued. Signed Dan Cleary again.
How are we 3 years in?
Yeah, I know. Signed Dan Cleary again for a 1-year contract, $950,000. He played 35 AHL games that did not make it to the NHL. He traded the signing rights to Matthias Janmark plus a second-round pick that turned into Rupe Hintz for 11 games of Eric Cole's NHL career.
That's got to be a deadline deal. That's bad.
And it's the last
trade idea.
The last 11 games of Eric Cole's career.
Oh, I'm gonna mark that one down.
2016 went on a hilariously bad spending spree, and I think 16 wasn't that the really bad free agent year?
It was dud. Like every contract was a bad idea.
So Detroit signed up almost $100 million that summer, and all of them are bad. Darren Helm, 5 years, $19.25 million. Franz Nielsen, 6 years, $31.5 million, bought out by Yzerman. Danny DeKeyser, 6 years, $30 million. Moved back from the 16th spot in the draft, which, by the way, was Jacob Chychrun, to 20th for Dennis Cholowski to offload Pavel Datsuk's contract. Just to offload the contract.
Is the bad move the trade or the bad move the pick?
I think the bad move is the pick.
Why not both?
Why not both? I don't know, trade, man. You tell me. 2017, signed Trevor. I remember this one. Signed Trevor Daley, 3 years, $9.5 million. Managed 44 games all year in year 2 and 43 in all of year 3, all at replacement level or lower, then retired. And then he didn't do a whole lot else. 2018, tacked on 2 more years of Mike Green's decline at 5.275 per year. I remember that. I remember thinking, like, why didn't they just trade him at the deadline? Hilariously, Green finishes that contract off with 2 games in Edmonton. You guys remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Paid $3 million for the last 64 games of Thomas Vanek's career in 2018. Sold off some assets to start the rebuild of the roster he destroyed. Oilers Payne is clearly not a fan. He left Detroit a parting gift, a $5.1 million contract for Jimmy Howard to play 27 more games for the franchise, his last in the NHL at an .882 save percentage. And then he comes to Edmonton and picks away at the fringes, but still manages to overpay Chason and Jujhar Khaira. In 2020, he signed Zach Cassian to a 4-year, $12.8 million extension. He also bridged Darnell Nurse to set up the atrocious next contract. I don't know. Do we call that atrocious yet? Do we call that atrocious yet? I don't know.
It's only atrocious if they don't accomplish anything.
Right.
Which they haven't. Like, why do you think the Leafs take so much shit?
Yeah.
Because they haven't done anything.
Yeah.
You know?
He then signed Kyle Turris at 2 years, $1.65 million, traded a fourth for 2 games of Mike Green, traded 2 seconds for 13 games of Athanasiou. 2021 executives executes the final step of botching Nurse by extending him for 8 years at $74 million. I don't know if I agree with that quite yet. Signed Tyson Barrie for 3 years, $13.5 million. Extended Slater Koekkoek and Devin Shore for 2 years each for some reason. Traded Jones and a pick for Duncan Keith's full cap hit, and traded Ethan Bear for Warren Fogle. And there you have it. The past 10 years of Ken Holland. What a run.